When European fur dealers first saw the skins worn by these African dancers, they thought they were fakes. They didn't believe that black and white hairs could grow in such a closely intermingled pattern on any animal. When they discovered the skins were genuine, a new market was created. Between 1871 and 1891, almost 2 million were auctioned in London. The skins have always featured prominently in the dances and rituals of some African tribes, especially the Luo and Kikuyu of Kenya. The black and white colobus monkey, the owner of these skins, is starting to become a rarity in some parts of Africa. Now, despite the fact that there is an international ban on trading these skins, hunting still persists in some areas of Africa. Another reason for their gradual demise is an all too common one. The colobus monkeys are losing their treetop habitat as cultivation encroaches on the woodlands they live in. In folklore, the black and white colobus's appearance invited comparisons with human beings. The early Arab traders noted that when the colobus climbed the trees at dawn and dusk, they seemed to be hunched in the semblance of prayer. So they called them messengers of the gods. The word colobus is derived from the Greek for mutilated or stunted. Early zoologists thought the first specimens they saw had broken thumbs, or even that their thumbs had been cut off. The thumb is in fact almost missing. It is probably an adaptation to facilitate moving through the treetops. They live largely in the treetops. There they are safe from everything except leopards, crowned hawk eagles, chimpanzees, and of course, people. When feeding or leaping, they use their forelimbs in a looser way than most other Old World monkeys. They use longer leaps to escape predators or for faster travel. When they do descend to ground level, they're exceptionally fast movers. In a small acacia woodland on the shores of Lake Naivasha in the Rift Valley of Kenya, smoke rises from the trees. The yellow-barked acacias are being felled to make way for a new farming scheme. This part of a big ranch is to be irrigated with lake water and planted with lucerne to feed cattle. In one sense, the acacia wood isn't going entirely to waste, though few ecologists could be expected to agree. These men are charcoal burners. They're slicing the recently felled timber into suitable lengths for the slow-burning process which makes Africa's universal domestic fuel. This felling is all part of a carefully planned farming scheme that will ultimately provide food. Elsewhere in Africa, forests are being cut down at a fantastic rate for no other purpose than to make charcoal, often in an entirely wasteful way. The result for the trees is always the same. This is the process by which the living forest is reduced to sacks full of crumbly black fuel. Cremation of a woodland requires a slow fire. Grass is heaped on the logs and earth and sods piled on top of the dead trees. The brushwood is burned, seen as useless by human judgment. But to the Colobus monkeys, the brushwood meant food and shelter. The farmer has a right to make the best use of his land. But in this case, it happened that the only troop of Colobus along this part of the lake lived in this particular acacia woodland. Some of the trees died, but the Colobus troop survived. The farm owner halted the tree felling and charcoal burning just in time. The Colobus owe their survival to the appearance in the forest of a young scientist. Mike Rose studied medicine at Cambridge and taught human anatomy at Nairobi University for 4 years. From 1975 to 1982, he studied at Yale University. It was in this period that he began his study on the locomotion of both Colobus and vervet monkeys. After a year's close study, the Colobus troop accepted Mike Rose's presence without trepidation. His principal goal was to shed light on the evolution of the higher primates, Old World monkeys, apes and hominids, which include humans. Vervet monkeys share the woodland with the Colobus. Mike Rose didn't expect to come up with any easy answers. He was interested in how differences in anatomy were reflected in their varying methods of movement. There were lots of other interesting creatures to watch in the acacia woodland. A scimitar bill probing for insects. Small parties of Hadada ibis. Verreaux's eagle owl. And a pair of fish eagles. The lake is one of their great breeding grounds. But it was the Colobus and the vervet monkeys on which the long study hours were spent. The actual work involved in the study of minute and apparently meaningless observations can't be underestimated. Later, these observations will be fed into a computer and the results analysed. Mike Rose made some original observations about Colobus, a species about which comparatively little is known, mainly because of the inaccessibility of the dense forest in which it usually lives. He had a unique opportunity because this particular troop was isolated in a very small, quite open forest. Mike Rose discussed the project with the farm manager and estate owner, both of whom became sympathetic to the monkey's plight. When tracks had to be cut through the woodland for the cattle, the farm manager agreed to do so in a way that would cause least interruption to the routes used by the Colobus in their daily feeding activities. The estate owner, a keen wildlife supporter, agreed to sparing the remaining trees, allowing Mike Rose to finish his study. So the Colobus troop were given a new lease of life.
Colobus monkeys belong. The leaf-eating monkeys.
The first aspect of the troop's behavior to be studied was the routine of its daily life. Dawn over the newly reprieved acacia woodland on the shores of the lake. Colobus are quiet animals, but occasionally, throughout the night and usually at dawn, the males roar. This piece of woodland was barely 4 hectares in area, but the troop was entirely dependent on it. Lake Naivasha, at just under 2,000 meters above sea level, is the highest in the Great Rift Valley. There are 19 animals in the group, the largest troop of Colobus ever recorded. If there was more space available, the group would probably have split into 2. The monkeys used 4 regular sleeping trees. The whole group seemed to prefer sleeping close together. At dawn, male Colobus begin a leaping display, showing off their white mantles of fur as a way of communicating over long distances. This early activity generally took place in the sleeping tree. Other Colobus sat and let the rays of early sun do the warming up process for them. As well as shelter, an acacia tree provided the Colobus here with a large proportion of everything they needed. Saving this small woodland benefited many other lakeside creatures too. Verreaux's eagle owl, mousebirds feeding on wild figs, and a bird that makes the most characteristic sound of African woodland savanna, the tropical boo-boo. A pair of African fish eagles. A small wood is a complex ecological unit. If it is destroyed, a great many forms of life will be eradicated. As the sun gets higher, more and more members of the troop become active. The amount of sleep needed is related in part to the time their digestive systems take to break down their vegetarian diet. So this defines their activity rhythms. Colobus spend 3/4 of their day resting, but soon even the troop will be driven to start looking for food. Colobus belong to a subfamily called leaf eaters. They have stomachs with 3 or 4 subcompartments, like those of kangaroos and sloths. It enables them to deal with their seemingly indigestible diet. Beside the native acacias and wild figs, they feed here on jacaranda, kaiapple and pepper, all trees introduced to the estate. There are seldom quarrels within this isolated group. Though they would defend their territory against rival troops, at this site they've no competition. The nearest Colobus neighbours are 3 kilometres away, in favourable conditions just within calling range. The first hour or two of the day is usually spent in or close to the sleeping tree, with individuals taking a light snack. This is known as low-intensity feeding. From time to time, the Colobus groom each other, a social activity that plays an important part in strengthening bonds in most primate groups. Then one individual moves off to begin the first real feed of the day. The troop moves together, following each other in ones and twos, using familiar routes through the trees day after day. A couple of hours of solid feeding follow, then a short move. They seldom travel more than 300 metres in a day. After feeding activity, another rest period follows to allow for digestion. This is usually the time when the juveniles and infants indulge in play, an important part of their social development. If things get too rough, one Colobus makes a gesture of submission. Tail pulling is an accepted form of play behaviour among juveniles. Among adults, it has a different meaning. A mature male propositions a passing female by pulling her tail. There's little courtship rivalry in a Colobus group. Any female is accessible to a dominant male. During at least one of the feeding periods into which the day is split, some Colobus usually descend to ground level to feed. Here, the attraction is a lava cliff, which contains minerals the Colobus need to maintain a balanced diet. It's quite common for animals to use salt licks in this way. The lava probably contains calcium or phosphates, which they chew or lick from its surface. Both clay and lava may also be used to absorb toxins from the leaves they eat. When the juveniles visit the lava cliff, play fighting often breaks out. Towards the end of his study, Mike Rose had a rare chance to closely observe an event usually concealed by the density of the trees in which the colobus live. One of the females had given birth. Colobus babies are born completely white with pink hands and face, and hands turn black within 3 weeks. The full colour change to a black and white coat is completed over 6 months. The colobus female embraces her baby tightly as she grooms its coat. For the first fortnight, the baby clings to the mother's belly. At 6 weeks, it begins to eat leaves. Weaning starts at 2 months. Full independence from the mother occurs a 1.5 years after birth. A baby colobus is an object of great social interest in the group. Other females crowd around to look and touch. Quite often, another female takes the baby from the mother. Several species of monkey exhibit this behavior, known as aunting. The troop's cohesiveness is probably partly due to this sharing of offspring. The mother doesn't appear to take exception, though she will take the baby back in a short time. Young females of 2 to 4 years often form groups to inspect a new baby. Males show less interest, except to disrupt these largely female gatherings. Mike Rose reported that this particular troop continued to thrive, breaking off into 2 separate groups in the 1980s. Over the last 5 years, research has convinced zoologists that these colobus monkeys are maintaining a stable population growth. In order to safeguard their survival, the monkeys need to be efficiently managed, and people need to be made aware of their role to ensure that habitat used by these charming animals is no longer destroyed unless absolutely necessary.
Previously, chimpanzees have been filmed on the savannah. For the first time, this film follows one particular and extraordinary group of chimps into their true habitat, the heart of Africa's dwindling rainforest. The group is 60 strong, dominated by 7 adult males. There are 21 adult females and over 30 juveniles and babies. Together, they form a tight, close community. They defend 10 square miles of territory and each day walk about 4 miles looking for food and making sure that rival chimp groups don't trespass. They stop occasionally to feed, rest or groom, often choosing places where a break in the canopy lets sunlight penetrate to the forest floor. Chimpanzee society is extremely close and intimate. Males spend their entire lives in just one group, while females don't leave until they're 11. The alpha male who dominates our group is a greyback called Brutus. He's 35 years old and has led the group for 8 years. His nearest rival is a 25-year-old black-backed male called Macho, the beta male. The mothers carry and suckle their babies until they're 5, and it takes 13 years for a female and 15 for a male to reach maturity. practically part of the group and able to recognize all the chimps individually straight away is a Swiss zoologist, Christoph Börsch. For 10 years, working almost every day from dawn to dusk, he has studied and recorded the group's behavior with his wife, Hedwige.
At first, for about 2 years, we went every day into the forest trying to find the chimps and follow them, and they just ran away whenever they saw us. Actually, it took about 5 years until we could follow them by sight, and now sit comfortably amongst them and study them. During this time, our 2 children were born and they grew up in the jungle. For them, their only home so far was our simple straw hut in the middle of the forest.
The Thai forest covers 1,600 square miles in the southwest of the Ivory Coast. It's the largest remaining fragment of a massive forest that once stretched in a continuous band from Guinea to Nigeria. Spared from a major drought during prehistory, Thai is the oldest and therefore the richest rainforest in West Africa. "60 meters high, primary rainforest, and the last refuge for many uniquely West African species. The chimps spend about 6 hours a day looking for food and have a varied diet: leaves, fruits, insects, honey, even fungi. They're particularly fond of fruits that drop from forest trees and prepare them carefully before eating. They take their collection down to a stream or pond and wash off the dirt. Then they chew the fibrous fruit into a ball of pulp and spend ages sucking out all the goodness. Extremely strong arms make chimps great climbers and enable them to gather fresh leaves and fruits in the canopy. Here, exposed to the sunlight, the richest part of the forest. A crowned hawk eagle returns to her massive nest. It's 3 meters wide by 3 meters deep, and she's constantly adding to it. 50 meters from the forest floor, it's a shady haven for her 2-month-old chick. Weighing 4 kilos with a 1.5 meter wingspan, the crowned eagle is the dominant predator of the forest canopy, regularly taking monkeys. Thai has lots of monkeys. There are 8 different species in all, and the forest is the last remaining stronghold of a number of them, including the beautiful Diana monkey. There are good numbers of black and white colobus, and the last major population of the western race of the red colobus. All these monkeys spend 90% of their lives in the canopy, using the trees like a giant aerial walkway. Leave the canopy, and at every layer there are new species. Thai has over 200 species of bird, many different squirrels, and on the forest floor, pygmy hippos, forest antelope, and monkeys. These are grey-cheeked mangabeys. They've discovered a tree that is shedding its nuts. Delicious food, but hard work for even the strongest teeth. And they're nervous. Leopards are common, and such a rich fall of nuts attracts everyone. Discovering such a bonanza always involves a great deal of excitement. The males squabble spectacularly among themselves. Macho is particularly vocal, competing for dominance of the group with the alpha, Brutus. Climbing onto the fallen tree, Macho challenges Brutus. Throughout the past year, Macho has been pressing his claims. Macho began to dominate these mock battles of strength, and now he has replaced Brutus as leader. Sitting confidently on the tree, Macho accepts the screaming recognition of his dominance. Eventually, things quieten down, and everyone gets on with the job of collecting nuts. The problem, though, as the mangabeys discovered, is the nuts themselves. They're extremely strong, and it's difficult to break them open with teeth alone. But the chimps have literally cracked the problem. They've devised special tools. Placing the nuts in a hole in a root, they crack them open with specially selected hammers. Repeated use has deepened the hole and produced an anvil that holds the nut in place. Using these tools, experienced chimps can crack 2 nuts a minute. For the hardest nuts, they keep and transport rare stone hammers. Cracking is not easy. You have to choose both a good anvil and a good hammer. Only West African chimpanzees have developed this nut-cracking ability, and it takes more than 10 years to learn the technique. Newborn infants pay little interest in the nut cracking, but by the time they're 2 years old, they begin to steal scraps from their mothers. Eventually, they may be receiving 40% of the cracked nuts. The mothers accept this without protest, hoping their young will learn to crack by example. By the time they're 5, the youngsters are trying for themselves, without much success. Only after they're at least 6, and sometimes not until they're 10, do the young chimps have both the strength and the technique to crack nuts efficiently. Sometimes the group will continue to crack for several hours, and it's only with the coming of night that the last chimp finally leaves the nut-cracking site. The chimps sleep up in the trees, making themselves a new bed every night in a new location. Choosing a strong fork, they bend the ends of the branches to form a comfortable platform in just 2 minutes. With darkness, the night shift comes on duty. This is a pangolin. Only now can the Birches return home from the forest for a few hours with their children. They are serenaded from the forest by the non-stop calling of male hammerhead bats as they vie for the attentions of the females. The chimps begin to stir before the sun rises over the canopy. The nest site may be at least an hour's run from their house, but the Birches must be back there before the chimps set off. If they're not, they may be unable to find the chimps again that day. The first thing the chimps do is to find some breakfast. Safari ants. A good meal if you can avoid the ferocious jaws of the soldiers. The chimps have discovered how to collect ants without getting their fingers bitten. First, they choose and shape a fresh stick that is just the right length. Dip the stick in the nest, let the angry ants attack it, and eat them before they eat you. Simple. The Thai chimps have developed more tools than any other animal except man, 19 in total. And perhaps the most surprising is the sponge. The chimps crush leaves into a ball, put it into tree holes holding water, and then suck their sponge dry. The chimps take regular breaks, and particularly when it gets hot in the middle of the day, they like a good sleep. Just like human children, young chimps are more restless. They simply can't resist the jungle climbing frame. The female eagle is calling up in the canopy. Always on guard near the nest, she flies to her chick. The male arrives with food. He's frightened of the female. It's a small forest antelope, a duiker. The chick is being fed almost once a day at this stage, mostly by the male. He flies up to 10 miles from the nest, returning usually with monkeys or antelope, which may weigh up to 20 kilograms, 5 times his weight. This chick will take its first flight in 2 months, but spend an extraordinary 10 further months around the nest, reliant on its parents for food. The chimps are drumming again. The males are on the move. They clearly mean business. It's not just eagles that have a taste for monkeys. Moving quickly and quietly, the males are looking for Colobus. It's important to spot the prey before they spot you. The hunt is on. The males start to climb. Each hunter has his own special role to play. This male is the driver. He keeps the colobus moving in one direction. Another climbs quietly into position, ready to block an escape. Light and agile, the colobus could easily escape a single chimp by sitting on the thinnest branches. Only by cooperating can the chimps hope to catch them. This is the ambusher, waiting quietly ahead. When the time comes, he will rush up and close the trap. Other males on the ground monitor the hunt, ready to dash ahead to intercept escaping colobus. The driver leaps. Now colobus and chimp are in the same tree. The ambusher rushes up to close the trap. Leaping across a gap, the colobus escape. Unable to follow, the frustrated hunters must quickly descend in the hope of catching up with the colobus on the ground. This time, they're lucky. Among the red colobus group are, as so often happens, some quieter black and white colobus. Difficult to find, these monkeys are, in fact, the chimp's favorite prey. A hunter nearly grabs its prey. Females scream with excitement. The hunters struggle to bring their victim to the ground. The newly dominant male, Macho, is furious. He's been excluded from the kill. They're supporting their old ally, Brutus, the greyback that Macho deposed as alpha male. With the females on his side, Brutus gets the major share, to Macho's frustration. Only after the kill has been dismembered does the forest finally quieten down. Though this scramble for meat appears completely disorganized, it's always the same dominant individuals that get a piece, and then share it with their particular friends and relations. Though only 6 males hunt, up to 20 chimps may share the kill. The first time the Birches saw a hunt, even they were shocked. But as they began to understand more about its complex organization and the unselfish way in which the meat was shared, their respect and admiration of the chimps increased. It used to be argued that it was not until our ancestors left the forest for the open savannas that those essential human characteristics, tool using, cooperative behavior and complex communication, really flowered. The discoveries made by the Birches may change that view. The Thai chimps use more tools than those on the savannas and cooperate more elaborately than they do. So maybe the first steps towards humanity were not taken on the open plains. Maybe the rainforest is, in fact, our distant ancestral home.